that's just those events require using those vehicles in a different way. They're not, they're wrecking them instead of preserving them. Although I think they are repaired. My understanding from some of Mr. Day's comments is that there is a life cycle of some kind on a demolition derby vehicle. After a while, you just can't weld it enough to fix it. At that point, Mr. Day has taken them into a recycling. He recycles them, and I understand that some of that recycling may have occurred in Denver. He may do it here locally somewhere, but you come to a point where that demolition derby vehicle is just simply not going to work anymore.
So the proposal is that the commissioners include demolition derby cars in the definition of collector cars, and have to make that finding, or the other option would be they grant a conditional use permit and it only includes collector cars and excludes the race cars and derby cars. Is that correct?
Well, Mr. Knight, I certainly defer to the board on that decision. It does not meet the preservation definition.
That's what I mean. What you're presenting is that decision, whether they make the decision to include them in with collector cars, or
yes.
Make a determination that we're going to approve a conditional use permit, which would only apply for the historic vehicles, and the demolition derby cars would not be included. It would have to be removed.
And I would offer, in addition, that those kinds of hobbies which don't meet the definition may, at some point down the road, have to be dealt with in a different way. Does it rise to the level of being a zoning violation? We don't really address them that way. And so perhaps we may have our definition may be too limited. Maybe it's a perfect definition that we need to apply just as it's written. Those things I certainly would defer to you.
Okay. Mr. Chairman?
If we put collector's cars and demolition derby, would that be a text agreement that we'd have to come up with?
I think relative to this variance, I think we as the budget line are looking at Mr. Knight to make that determination.
Text agreement.
It wouldn't be a text agreement for sure. And that, Gene's talking about, maybe we want to do that, but that's not before us right now. I think the decision before you right now is to decide if demolition derby cars are collector cars pursuant to the current resolution. And the other alternative would be not to grant it at all, and that would be an option, but the other would be to grant a conditional use permit only for the ones who qualify for the collector cars, and then any race cars or demolition derby cars would not be included under the conditional use permit. And I don't see how they could be anything but a zoning violation under the current violation. But I'll defer. That's not really before the commission right now. We can talk about that later, but I think that's the choice here. You have three choices right now.
Okay. Thank you. And so when I ask for the motion, besides the additional information of the cars, state the screening is going to have to be done, I will also ask for consideration whether or not we want to address the issue of derby cars and collector cars.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make.
You need a motion?
Oh, this is a public hearing. Right.
So further question for
I do, Mr. Chairman. I have one more question from staff. I'm not generally in favor of asking for screening where it's not practical, if it doesn't serve a purpose. So, and looking at the area, it seems like there's several hills and some valleys. And so would staff have a recommendation where, in my opinion, it should, if there's a hill going by, that would serve the purpose of screening, and if it's down, if there's a low point up an 8-foot fence doesn't make any difference, then to me, there's no point in asking them somebody to put up a fence. Does that make sense?
Very much.
Commissioner Keating, the area on the side of that hill as you drive down on the north side was characterized by one of the members of the Planning and Zoning Commission who happens to be a geologist. It is a kind of almost a crater up there, and I believe that will come out in the minutes if you review the minutes of that meeting. That was part of his reason to try to position those cars in a way where the actual screening would be effective. And the test has always been, since the beginning of all of this, is that if you can see the cars through the fence or through the trees, it's not effective screening. And that would, of course, terminate the CUP in that circumstance, or could terminate it. We get a lot of advice. We mentioned some correspondence that we did receive, and I think you've looked at it. In one case, one of the nearby residents, we think, in that area, commented that she had no problem with the car accumulation if he would plant trees, around the accumulation or at the bottom of the hill. There are, as I've mentioned, other accumulations just right in fairly close proximity to Mr. Day's home and where he has his cars. So the application or the recommendation made by the Planning and Zoning Commission, we thought was fairly thoughtful to, arrange the cars first, then put up the screening. And I think the expectation was that the screening would then be more effective.
I understand, but would the screening be all the way around?
That's my understanding. I think there would have to be some kind of a gate, to take them out from time to time.
Well, certainly a gate, but I mean, the point I'm trying to make is if a hill provides screening, then I don't think the screening's been provided by the topography. And if a guy lives at the bottom of the hill and people live higher than he does looking down, I wouldn't require screening because an 8-foot fence isn't going to make any difference anyway.
Certainly that's true, and we addressed the topography issue early on in the process of drafting the regulations, and as you recall, there was a committee involved in that. We can't do much about topography. If somebody is up on a hill, they're likely going to see the car accumulation, and that, whether or not that amounts to an exception, it's a kind of a question of to what degree is it, how many cars is it, what other things might be there. In this particular case, we believe that there will soon be occupants on some of the land which is down that slope. Jack Dalton has property down there. It's a tax sale kind of thing. And the property is trashed right now. But at some point, he'll have to clean that up, and somebody will buy that house, and they will be looking up the hill. And so, there is a likelihood that if the cars are on the face of that slope, that they are going to be visible to someone's family, someone who is now living at the bottom of that hill. That's why the screening appears to be a relatively efficient means of getting the cars on the slope and using the slope to protect on the south side, but screening on the north side to prevent somebody being able to look up the hill and see the cars.
So you put it on the north side, not necessarily on the south side?
Well, yes, they're right now just right along the ridge line. And as we indicated, we think there is kind of a bowl, if you will, or a crater.
Okay, because I thought you said the screening was gonna go all the way around.
Not deep enough, I don't think, to make it work all the way around.
So we're only requiring screening where it's practical, where it actually has a use. Okay.
Well, the test again is certainly that if you're going to be able to see the cars.
No, I understand, yeah, thank you.
Okay. Further questions?
Yeah, I've got one. In the original application, it says I plan on using semi-trailers to screen if approved, but that's off the table and now it's the 8-foot panels, right?
That's definitely off the table, and the thinking about that is whether it be a semi-trailer or a sea can, it seems a little bit like defeating a purpose to use trash to screen trash.
The cars that I saw out there, Mr. Chairman, there was one property that did have some fencing around the car. And it really did, so I agree with the fencing.
Other questions? Mr. Chairman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gene, is this quantity, 40 cars that we're talking about here, is that commensurate with what else we've been seeing for this size of the acreage?
Yes, it's, as you know, we have not had numerous applications for this conditional use permit. It has been aided along the way by the code enforcement folks who are trying to work with people to, get some of these screening plans implemented without having some kind of a citation crafted. But the numbers are just really all over the board. We'll be presenting another application to you, which has much of the same kind of history that this one does. That is in a place where there are homes up on a hill, and people not very happy about the fact that they can look down and see those vehicles. So the screening, in some cases, has got to be a more aggressive plan. We have a provision in the regulations here that indicates that if you have a lean-to, a pole barn, any kind of an enclosure where you can place those vehicles, they're out of sight and they are exempt. So I think, trying to answer your question, regardless of the number, the bigger the number, certainly the bigger the challenge for the screening, and perhaps it introduces the need to do something like a complete enclosure. That may be the only way to screen in some cases.
I see that the Day's house is on the property. Are the junk cars or collector cars within sight of their house where they live?
I don't believe so. Mr. Day is in the audience, and I'm sure he can answer that question better than me. As I went out to that site and went up the hill, I could see his house looking to the left, but I couldn't see the cars until I got to the top of the hill. And when I was at the top of the hill, if I looked back, his house is lower on the opposite slope. So my take on it is that he can't look out his window and see those cars unless he might, under some circumstances, just have some parked up there, but the bulk of them is along that ridge.
And you mentioned that the, I believe, soon-to-be sold property to the north would likely be able to see the collection. Is that correct?
Well, that's my take, because I went down the hill and made the turn to the and I could see the Dalton property, and I just happened to know from dealing with him over several years that he purchases some of these, participates in some of these tax sales. When he does, he has a period of time, there is a redemption period on that, and it may vary from time to time. But at some point, he takes title, and then he can sell the property. During the interim period, when it's really not his, he's holding it, he's in possession of it, but subject to a redemption period. That period of time appears in the past to have been an opening for individuals to dump whatever they have on that property. We've observed that in several different situations, different locations around the county.
So are there any other occupied dwellings, or roughly how many other occupied dwellings will be able to see this collection? Any idea?
My take is there is a home with fencing around it and some accumulations literally right across the road from him at the top of the hill. The fences are not the same. They're not the staves are not together, and it would be easy enough, for Mr. Day to look at that property and see right through the fence at whatever the accumulation was. The fence that we've showed you is not just one panel, but however many it takes to get a 100 by 100 enclosure. That fence appears to me not to be, I'm not seeing light through it, so I'm of the opinion at this point that is adequate if it's tall enough. Now, depending on what your angle is and where you are on that slope, he needs to try it out. So, I'm reiterating the Zoning Commission recommendation that he align the cars first and then work the screening. That will require more time, but he will still probably be implementing it within the 180-day period.
So in your estimation, or staff's estimation, and Trish and Morty, if you'd like to weigh in on this, please do. Do you think that this 8-foot screening is going to be adequate?
Well, I think that we're certainly going to have to be out there and look at it, as we have done in multiple other cases where there haven't been that many cases, I guess, but we've gone out there and looked at it and look at what the result is. If we can see it, if we can see the cars through the trees or see, any of it, then the screening is frankly a failure at that point, and something more has to be done. Our philosophy has been to try to work with people. If they need to do something that can improve it, I have to believe that our zoning people, who I'm not really associated with now, will probably raise that point and make a suggestion, and then we see where that goes.
Thank you.
Any further questions for Mr. Wallace?
I just have one short question. How long has those cars been there?
I have really,
I guess I can ask Mr. Day how long they've been.
yes. I frankly
Before he
don't
came
know.
out for this proposal.
No other questions for Mr. Wallace? Okay. Thank you, Gene.
Thank you.
Stay handy. At this time, I would ask those individuals who wish to speak in favor of the Curtis Day conditional use permit to please approach the lectern.
Day, 3858 Sandra Circle.
Danielle Mason, 3858 Sandra Circle.
As far as we've found, there's not really any reasons that the derby cars don't fit the definition of the conditional use permit. This says including parts cars and having appeal to the individual. So they all have appeal to me, but 90% of my vehicles are demolition derby cars, which there's not really any zoning restrictions on demolition derby cars. So this is the permit that they told me we had to get to keep the cars. As far as demolition derby cars are, there's not really any zoning violation for what they are.
And then there was talk about altering the characteristic of the neighborhood. And I have put, we went around and got images all around to show you exactly what the characteristic of our neighborhood was. And this is the reason we bought the property, was because the cars shouldn't have altered the characteristic.
And so when did you purchase this property?
May
Of 2011.
They didn't have cars on it at that time.
No.
It had no cars, so you brought all the cars in at that time. And you to avoid the question, you say these are in fact derby cars.
Yeah, 90% of them are. Or if they're not now, they're gonna be, because you might find a car today, but you won't find it tomorrow. But you might not use it till the next year. And they do get recycled. I got one car that's got 25 derbies on it right now. But, and then after that, I take them and crush them. They don't just sit around forever, so. They're just a big pile of metal sitting on.
And approximately how many cars do you have there now?
About 37 right now.
And then also, at the last meeting, we were asked to move the cars down slightly off of the hill and get them aligned in the arrangement. So we started that, and we do have a picture that we'd like to show you that.
Anything else?
No, do you guys have any
Okay,
questions?
Mr. Woodard.
You're going to great expense to put up that fence. How much do you think it's going to cost you to put up that fence?
The fence panels are about $30 a panel.
And how soon would you be putting it up?
Probably after the snow gets done.
Well, I'm sorry.
Probably after the snow gets done, so within a year, because I'm not gonna be able to put it up when the ground's frozen.
Well, for one, I want you to know I appreciate you going through this process, and the expense of putting up that fence is quite a bit of money.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna get rid of the car, I have to get.
And I appreciate you have a hobby, and you know, you have to, and it's a great hobby. My boy was involved in it at one time. I know it's not a cheap hobby either.
No.
Top of that, you're putting up that fence, so I appreciate that.
Mr. Chairman? And so, I understand, well, the question I was trying to ask, the point I was trying to make was that I'm not in support of any screening that isn't practical. So, is 8-foot fence around this 100 by 100 foot area practical all the way around?
Around the top side of the hill, it's not gonna do anything, because you can't see them from the south side of the property or the south side of anywhere because of that hill.
Okay.
And the other three sides of it, it'll help. I mean, if you're obviously above it, you can see in it.
Okay.
And we did, when we first submitted that, we emailed it to Ms. Paige Johnson, and we didn't have a fence on that south side, but she stated that we needed a gate put in, or the 2 gates put in, so that's where we added the fence in, because originally we didn't think we would need a fence there since the hill was right there.
So could you live without a gate if you only had a fence on 3 sides?
Yeah, if we had a fence on 3 sides, we wouldn't need the gate.
If you look at it, the cars are going north to south, so there's the road that they're using.
In this photo that you've given us where you've lined them all up, it's showing, I'm counting 18 cars, so where's the other 20?
We don't have them all aligned yet. They said start lining them up. And we haven't had time to finish aligning them if we don't know it's gonna be approved or not. I mean, I don't wanna start putting up a fence if I have to put up a shop.
Is that in the bottom of the swale, so to speak?
Yeah, they wanted us to move them down off the top of the hill, or off the middle of the hill. So we moved them down into the valley of the hill. So they're barely visible from the north side now.
Further questions?
Mr. Chairman, one other thing, Mr. Curtis, if, Mr. Date, if you put up that fence, on the sand dune estates, there's a lot of sand out there. So the posts really have to be, I mean, putting up a fence and all that sand, is yours a very sandy area, no doubt?
It's pretty sandy, we'd probably concrete the post in though.
Was, yeah. I just want to make sure he's going to concrete it.
Further questions? Mr. Day, and your last name?
Mason.
Mason, thank you very much.
Thank you kindly.
For the second time, I would ask those individuals who wish to speak in favor of the Curtis Day conditional use permit to please approach the lectern. And for the third and final time, I would ask those individuals who wish to speak in favor of the Curtis Day conditional use permit 13-004 to please approach the lectern. At this time, I would ask those individuals who wish to speak in opposition to the Curtis Day conditional use permit to please approach the lectern. For the second time, I would ask those individuals who wish to speak in opposition to the Curtis Day conditional use permit to please approach the lectern. And for the third and final time, I would ask those individuals who wish to speak in opposition to conditional use permit 13-004 to please approach the lectern. There being no others to speak for or against CUP 13-004, I now declare this public hearing closed.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion we approve conditional use permit 13-004 with the fact.
Okay, I'm going to be specific before we get a second. That the findings of fact have been met. There is a period of time required and a number of cars required that we're going to approve this conditional use permit for. In your motion, do you have a number of
Well,
cars?
I would say up to 40.
Okay.
And
How long to finish the screening?
well, I would do that, he said he was going to start on it next fall. And we already said when we came up with this particular condition, this particular zoning requirements, we already said we'd work with people. So I would just give them time.
Can you give us a date?
On October 1st, 2014.
Okay, you want to use October 1st, 2014?
That would be fine.
And does your motion also include that he has to align the collector cars before the screening is put in place?
Well, yes, I would say this. You can line them,
Okay, we've got a motion out there. Do we have a second?
Second.
Discussion.
The commission would entertain just screening 3 sides, which practical, where the screening apparently is provided by both sides.
Mr. Chairman, I would say that